UFC 314 is an insanely stacked card, and it only has one title fight. Usually these days, if it's a stacked card, it requires 2 title fights, but this one, just Volkanovski vs. Lopes for a vacant title too, where the fight is amazing but has lost some worth since Ilia Topuria vacated his belt. If Volk wins, it establishes himself as a 2-time champion, and I'd say he's above Aldo as the greatest of all time. If Volkanovski wins the belt again against another top contender, the comeback of his career, where a lot of people are counting him out, a lot of people don't think that he is the same fighter, and if he could beat Diego Lopes, it shows that he still has it, right? He's still one of the best in the world. Well, technically, he would be the best featherweight, since Ilia's not there, but I do think after those devastating losses, coming back to beat someone like Diego, in my opinion, makes him the greatest featherweight of all time. But to be honest, it would feel like a king wearing a paper crown. Volk is better than everyone, and Ilia left the kingdom for a new one after defeating Volk. It makes featherweight feel watered down. If Diego wins though, then that shows that Ilia still had unfinished business at featherweight, and the weight class can still be in good shape. If the guy that Ilia knocked out wins the belt again and proves he is the best in the weight class without Ilia there, I would like to look at Volk as, the best featherweight, but you just can't. You can't. It would only be if Diego wins the belt. Then there's competition. There's a rivalry of Ilia maybe coming back to featherweight in the future to fight someone like Diego Lopes. But if Volk wins the belt, that's it. And Volk says he wants to be an active champion. He said he will beat Diego, then fight Mobstar 3 months later. He believes he's still that good, and he still wants to be the active champion that he once was. He's not changing a thing about himself. He wins the belt, he's going to be fighting again. It's so good for the weight class. It's so good for the UFC to have an active champion like Volk. The only thing is about the competition of it, like the status of his championship. A lot of fans are not going to look at Volk as the best featherweight in the world, even though Ilia is going up to lightweight. But I don't know if Volk can do it after those knockout losses. Diego's on a momentum, and with Ilia gone, the new chapter of the featherweight division might begin with Diego beating Volk. Ilia closed the chapter with beating Volkanovski, and he didn't want to continue to the next chapter. So it might be Diego who continues the story of featherweight, getting that title next. But here's the thing, if Volk is still at his best, or just in great form, I think he beats Diego for sure. Watching back some of Diego's striking sequences with Dan Ige and Brian Ortega, there is a striking skill gap between him and Volk. Diego moves his head one way, and it's as he's throwing the right overhand. The overhand left hook are his best and most confident strikes, but the height difference could eliminate the use of the overhand unless Volk runs into it like he did against Yair. Volk's leg kicks will be effective, and he has better cardio. Diego can keep that KO threat for about a round, and Diego starts gassing out. If it goes into the 4th and 5th rounds, I think Volk's got the win. But if Volk is washed, none of that matters, and Diego clips him on the chin, KOs him early. Volk is the far more skilled fighter, a legend of the game, one of the most technical MMA fighters of all time, but Diego's power will pulverize any version of Volk that isn't optimal, especially if his chin is weakened from the Islam and Ilia knockouts. I don't want to see Volk get knocked out for a 3rd time in a row, and the way that Diego can knock these guys out, it's vicious. Hopefully Volk can have a good performance, drag the fight out into the 4th and 5th rounds, and make it a show, but that's the only thing. We don't know which version of Volk is going to be standing across the octagon from Diego Lopes. And then the co-main event is Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. A great co-main event. Finally a step down in the rankings for Chandler, who has been fighting the elite of lightweight since his debut. Win or loss streak, Chandler has been given title eliminator fights multiple times even after losing. He's exciting, he's entertaining, he goes for the knockout no matter what fight he's in, he makes it competitive, and it gives a show for the fans. But at some point, if he keeps losing to those guys, he eventually has to fight fighters ranked below him, and now they give him Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett is like the next UFC experiment. They want to see how good this guy is, and I think this Michael Chandler fight is going to prove how good Paddy actually is. They're trying to build Paddy up to be the next star once these lightweight legends retire. They most likely want Paddy to replace them and run the division when they're gone, right? When Islam Makhachev retires and Charles Oliveira, Dustin, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, when all these guys are gone, which is probably in the next few years, Paddy is going to be there, and I think they want Paddy to be the star of the lightweight division, because if it's not him, then who else, right? And he can beat Chandler. Anyone could beat or lose to Chandler. That's not because Chandler is some suboptimal fighter not in his prime. It's simply because of his fight IQ. He fights in a way where he throws away the great technique that he is capable of for a reliance on attributes to create a show for the fans. The fighting style is so reckless that any decent fighter could beat him, but he can beat any other fighter as well, making these fights so dangerous. If he fought intelligently though, like we've seen him do against Dan Hooker, Benson Henderson, and in moments in the first Oliveira fight, that man is a world beater and should easily bulldoze Paddy Pimblett, stuffing all the takedowns easily and landing the right straight or left hook on Paddy's raised chin measuring off a good jab or feint, shutting off the lights, quick knockout win. But seeing how he stuck to that reckless style against Oliveira in the rematch, I think Paddy has a good chance of scrambling in some wild exchange to the ground and submitting Chandler, possibly even landing a good shot in the striking, because Paddy has decent punching power, and with all the wars that Chandler's been through, you can only imagine that his chin is just softening with every fight. Should be an entertaining fight. I can see both fighters winning. I would think on paper Chandler should win, but this is a different kind of fight for Chandler. This isn't a fight against an elite lightweight, right? He's not fighting Dustin. He's not fighting Oliveira anymore. He is fighting for his placement in the rankings. Chandler's always fought up his entire career. Besides the Tony fight, this is the first time he's fighting down. So maybe we will see a different version of Michael Chandler. Maybe similar to the one that fought Dan Hooker. Maybe similar to the one that fought Benson Henderson. And if that Michael Chandler shows up, I think he should be able to win this fight. But if Paddy wins this fight, he's going to be top 7, and he's in there with the best fighters in the weight class. A dream come true for the UFC. If he can get past Michael Chandler, there's some big fights lined up for Paddy Pimblett with the other legends of the lightweight division. So should be an interesting fight. And then Yair Rodriguez is welcoming Patricio Pitbull in the UFC, the Bellator GOAT himself, finally on the biggest stage in the world, to prove that he is one of the best featherweights, which he has been saying for years. So far, some of these Bellator fighters have done very well, when so many have doubted them. With Michael Chandler, Michael Venom Page, those are the main two. And Pitbull is arguably the best of them, but he's not in his prime anymore. Yair should be a very tough fight for Pitbull as well. If he is in good form, his distance striking should make this fight very difficult for Pitbull. The kicks versus that slow footwork is a disastrous fight for the former Bellator fighter. And maybe this is the UFC's way of proving that they are superior to their competition. They probably think that Yair is one of the worst styles for Pitbull to fight and wanted him to take the fight to prove that, right? Because I think a fight with Yair is more difficult than maybe some of the other fighters that are around his size, because Patricio Pitbull is a small featherweight. Even though he's fought at lightweight before and knocked out Michael Chandler, which is crazy. I mean, he fought in the bantamweight division against Sergio Pettis in 2023. And he's going up against one of the longest and tallest strikers in the weight class. He might need to take the fight to the ground. He has a lot of knockout power. He's a technical striker, but he needs to get in close to land his shots on Yair. And Yair's way faster with his footwork. So I think it's not a great fight for Pitbull on paper, but if he could pull it off and win, just how all these Bellator fighters seemingly are able to do in their UFC debuts, there's some really good matchmaking for Patricio Pitbull coming off a Yair win, because he would be in the top 5. And then we go to Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates, one of the best fights at welterweight. What other fight currently has more knockout power and more exciting striking exchanges than this one? Every exchange between Geoff and Carlos could be a fight ender. The fastest hands versus the most powerful hands. Geoff is faster, but Carlos hits harder. Even though he hasn't fought the best yet, no one is getting knockouts the way Carlos does. Body shots, head shots with knees and punches. It's just absolutely insane power that can also KO Geoff as well. But Geoff could blitz him in a matter of seconds for a quick TKO finish. And Geoff says that he's done with the pacifist style. He's going into the octagon to consistently finish fights now. This could be the best fight on the entire card, as long as one of them doesn't get colded before it becomes an actual fight, right? Because Carlos could just land some big shot 20 seconds in and KO Geoff. So that's going to be an insane fight, man. Then we go to Nikita Krylov versus Dominick Reyes. This is an amazing fight. Krylov hasn't fought since March of 2023, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. He beat Ryan Spann, Volkan Oezdemir, and Alexander Gustafsson. Crazy loss of Paul Craig, man. Paul Craig, the heavy version of Michael Johnson. But against Dominick Reyes, this could be a good fight. Dominick Reyes has good takedown defense, was getting up from the bottom when he fought John Jones. Very explosive, athletic, powerful left hand, good left kicks, and very good footwork. Nikita Krylov moves a lot as well, and is the more well-rounded fighter. He has good kicks, he has a lot of variety with his strikes, has decent wrestling to mix it up. If Dominick Reyes actually made this comeback and he's going to get right back to the title again, he should beat Krylov. He should be able to stop the takedowns, move on those angles for the left straight, because Nikita Krylov's head movement isn't the greatest. He has good footwork though. I think Dominick Reyes at his best has better footwork than Krylov, should be able to get on the outside of the lead foot if Krylov is in the orthodox stance, but if he's in the southpaw stance, move on the outside of the lead foot to land the left hand. But there's a lot of X factors of this fight. Nikita Krylov not fighting in a long time, and Dominick Reyes might be making his comeback with those 2 knockouts against Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith. Absolutely destroyed both of those guys. If both fighters are in their prime, this will be a great fight, man. If he wins against Reyes, I think Krylov should have one more fight and then fight for the title after. He should go up against a top 5 fighter next, whether it's Alexander Volkanovski, the winner of Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, or the loser of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. It could be any of those guys. But if Reyes wins, I would like to see him fight Alexander Volkanovski. Then we'll go to Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva that just got announced by Dana, and man did he look happy about it. John Silva called him out, Bryce Mitchell immediately accepted it. They both, I guess, called Dana, and the fight got made in a matter of like a week. And also, I can imagine Dana likes this fight. The only thing is he going to use some of the controversial talks in his promos. They've done stuff like that before, so. And when Bryce Mitchell accepted the fight, the UFC were probably like, yo, this is perfect. I think Dana wants John Silva to knock out Bryce Mitchell. I've never seen Bryce or John dislike their opponents before. Both usually either like or are neutral about their opponents. Bryce is the best grappler John's ever fought, but is John's takedown defense that good? The only fighter who took him to the ground was Charles Jourdain. A few others had no success, like Weston Wilson and Drew Dober, who did have a size advantage, but Charles Jourdain was able to get John Silva to the ground 3 times in their fight. Now, they don't wrestle exactly the same, but Charles Jourdain is not some insane wrestler, right? Even the takedowns he was shooting weren't like that crazy compared to what Bryce is capable of. I think Bryce should be able to perform better there, but I doubt John expected Jourdain to wrestle as he mainly strikes in his fights, you know? He will be training for the wrestling of Bryce. That's what Bryce does. That's his best skill. Take the fight to the ground, submit you. He has extremely good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He took down Ilia Topuria, had good top control. I see Bryce getting takedowns, John getting back up and landing some big shots, KOing Bryce. Bryce's wrestling can be effective, but in only stalling the knockout win for John. Like, if he's gonna wrestle, it's just delaying the knockout. Here's the thing, John could survive on the ground with Bryce, but Bryce could not survive in the stand-up with John. Might be the biggest mismatch on the entire card. So that is the main card of this overall stacked fight card, and man, I cannot wait. And leave the comments below, what's your guys' favorite fight? Is it even the main event? Honestly, I don't even know which one's my favorite fight. It might be the main event, just because how high level Volkanovski is. When we're talking about like the highest level expression of skill, Volkanovski is one of them. We got to cherish Volkanovski as long as we can, because man, we have no idea how he's going to look in this fight. He might be Alexander the Great Volkanovski, or he might be washed. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.